Well, thanks again for joining me, everybody. And I felt like doing something a little bit different. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually do kind of like a tutorial for Mazzarin's Demise. And we're actually going to look at the very first win on a legendary difficulty for Pyro's RC10A, which is, that's all that is it's one of the versions preceding the final version, which are excuse me, you're going to be able to download this off of the Tane and play it in conjunction with Mid-2 Soulblighter. And so what Mazzarin's Demise is it's actually a game, kind of a third-party constructed game using the tools that were provided with the Mid-2 Soulblighter game that came out, oh gosh, back in 1998. And it's been a long time since this game has been out, and Mazzarin's Demise has been out for a long time as well, and it's gone through many incarnations. This is just so happens to be the latest incarnation before Mazzarin's Demise 6 is completed. And so RC10A is just basically the latest build that Pyro's put out before I guess he releases the final for Mazzarin's Demise 6. So I wanted to show you guys exactly how to play this game in case you're interested. To play, basically all you need is a copy of Mid-2 Soulblighter, and that's it. That's all you need. Everything else is you can just kind of make and get for free. The plugin itself you can probably find on the Tane website. All of these, I should have links to all of these on my channel page, as well as well, you'll see if you look. But you can register an account on Marius if you feel like playing with other people, and that's what's actually going to be happening here. We're going to be looking at a game that's played by several individuals. I think it's a maximum. I don't know if you can play with 16 players or not, or if there is a cap at 14 players or what. But this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 player game. Once again, it is legendary, and that's the most difficult. That's the highest difficulty level there is in Mid-2 Soulblighter. There's timid, simple, then normal, then heroic, and then legendary. And I guess if you have played other Bungie games, then I don't know, I guess they've stuck with that, in Halo and other stuff. So that you might be familiar with that system. But Mazzarin's Demise is actually a game unlike any other that I have played. And it is kind of like Mid-2 Soulblighter, but the units are modified quite a bit. And just so you're aware, I've stopped the game. This is, nothing's happening just yet, because I want to go over some of these units with you. And it is a very long game, so keep that in mind. And it's one of the most difficult games that I have ever played, just because it is so taxing and it requires so much endurance to play. These units here are going to be the only units that the team gets for the duration. What's going to happen is they all go to Rabican. He's the team captain, and he's going to be distributing units amongst the different players on his team. And so everyone's going to be getting different units here. Now there's enough. There are enough special units here that everyone's going to be satisfied, I think. So what Mazzarin's Demise actually is portraying is it's from the myth lore. The the Fallen Lords and Mid-2 Soulblighter kind of have a story line behind them, and this was kind of alluded to. This battle was alluded to in that story, although we don't really get a glimpse of it, since according to the lore of the games, it happened sometime in the distant past. So what players attempt to do is kind of change fate in this game, because this battle, according to the myth lore, was lost by the forces of light. And so this is Mazzarin himself, and as you can probably tell, this this game will kind of catalog his demise. And what happens is he's just going along. He's just this powerful, mage of lights or whatever. He's just going along. He's a really powerful dude. And all of a sudden he gets ambushed by this very powerful sentient being called the Watcher, who's kind of a powerful mage who learned how to animate the dead. And so, you know, wave after wave of undead kind of hit you guys, and after, I think there were 7 waves of Thrall. After the 7th wave, it's here we go. And Mazzarin saw the Watcher with him, and at last knew the number of his days. So according to the myth lore, that's when Mazzarin went down, and the forces of light took a huge hit with the demise of Mazzarin. So that's what players are going to attempt to avoid. They're going to attempt to avoid duplicating that same fate there, and turn the tables on the Watcher. Having said that, this plugin is not designed, and I say plugin, you know, it's basically its own little game using the Myth2 engine. However, it's also referred to as a plugin because you download the plugin, put it in your plugins folder in order to be able to play it. So in that sense, it's a plugin. And you know, it's not really designed to be beaten. I'd say about 95% or more of the games played on this plugin are lost, and that's what I mean. It's one of the more difficult games I've ever played in my existence, and it's well, we'll get into the gameplay soon enough. So this is Mazzarin. Unfortunately, I'm not able to show you his inventory or anybody's inventory for some reason, but there are different items that can be picked up by many of these units and utilized as the game progresses. A lot of these units will also get better over time. They will, you know, get different buffs as they reach different levels. There are different levels, you know, some of these units, for instance, the Mortar Dwarf and the Forest Giants can go through different levels, like level 1, level 2, level 3, so on and so forth. I think most of the units that can level max out at level 3. So this is your main sorcerer unit. He's called an Avatara, and he can utilize a whole bunch of different spells. He's got a melee attack, and he's basically a tank. These are your 3 tanks: Mazzarin, the Paladin, and the Forest Giant. And when I say tank, I just mean they have like a buttload of HP. They can take a ton of damage. Mazzarin's probably your main tank. He's got a basic melee attack, and he can pick up crystals throughout the game's duration, and use those. He can pick up, I think, 7 of those in addition to the 2 that he starts out with. He starts out with Aura of Defense, which is a defensive spell that basically increases, it slows him down, but it increases his resistance to damage. And then he has Aura of Haste, which increases his base speed. So I think he's like, you know, 1.5 times faster or something like that. So those are his main 2 crystals, and they're timed crystals that you don't have infinite. They run out eventually. He also starts out with 3 Dispersal Dreams, and we'll get to see those in action. They're basically, I don't know, they're one of the most powerful spells in the game, and probably later on we'll get to see that in action. Now the other tank, the Paladin, he's basically the main healer unit for the team. He starts off with his Heal Burst ability, which is just an AoE heal. Whoever's in the vicinity has a high chance of being healed. It's not 100% chance because you know, the way that it occurs, you know, it can miss. We'll get to see it in action later on, but this is his Heal Burst crystal. I believe he's going to pick that up, and he has the ability to pick up crystals as well, up to 9 inventory slots once again, and then you can use them up, pick up more crystals. You can drop them, pick up different crystals, and there's random crystal drops by a lot of the monsters, especially the mini bosses as we progress through the game. Then there's 2 Mancers, kind of minor Mancers. There's the Electromancer and the Pyromancer. They cannot pick up crystals. What they start out with is what they get. They also have mana, and that's this blue bar at the top. This blue bar is for heal bursts, actually, I believe. And I don't know if this is a regeneration crystal or not. I'm not sure. I forget. Anyway, But the Electromancer has electric-based attacks, and they also they have mana and they have ammunition. And some of the spells cost mana, some of the spells cost ammunition, and some of the spells cost a combination of the two. So for the Electromancer, basic spell, well, so inventory 1 would be Bolt, which is like, you know, super long range, very powerful attack, uses up a ton of mana. Also the special attack would be a Storm, which is a defensive spell. It casts, you know, a storm cloud that shoots down lightning, and it heals the team's units and harms any enemy units in the vicinity. Inventory 2 would be Strike, which is kind of a more short range, less powerful electric attack that's very similar to Bolt. And then the special attack would be Chain, which you know, is kind of long range. When it hits, it chains an electric hit that deals some damage depending on, you know, the types of units that are hit. It can also do friendly fire. In fact, friendly fire is a major component of the Myth series, and Mazzarin's Demise is no exception. So So Chain is usually used on groups of units, low HP units that are rushing in there, and we'll see that to good effect later in the game. Inventory 3 is Missile, which is kind of a long range, not a very strong attack, and it shoots like, you know, 3 or 4, you know, I think it's between 1 and 5, or I don't know. As level 3, it can get ridiculous, but shoots out these little tiny things that come slowly or quickly. It all depends. You'll see it. It's these little tiny missile things. They're white and wispy. And then the special attack is Web, which shoots out this thing, and when it hits, it grabs all the different units around it and webs them in place. It's like a spider web, as you can imagine. They just get stunned in place from the electric attack. Inventory 4 is, I believe, Orb, which is this very powerful attack. It does cost an ammunition, though. Some of these attacks cost ammunition, like Storm costs ammunition, Chain costs ammunition, and Orb costs ammunition. And it's just like this bubble-looking thing that does a ton of electric damage, and we'll see if it's even used. It's usually most players that use the Electromancer don't even use it, because they can do the same thing basically with Bolt and not use up their ammunition, which by the late game can be of great importance. You know, whether or not you have enough ammunition for, you know, storms and so forth. And then the other attack would be Volt, which unlike Bolt, it's a mid-range, short to mid-range attack. It's a continuous lightning attack, so it whatever single unit you are attacking is just kind of stunned there for the duration of the attack, and you can see their HP drop, and also your mana drop significantly during the attack. It can be used defensively to good effect. Now the Pyromancer has, and then inventory 0, of course, is the mana replenish. Now both of these Mancers will be very vulnerable at that time, as well as they're vulnerable. I don't know if they're slower. Their resistances are a little bit lower, but you can kind of jumpstart your mana regenerate just a little bit while in inventory 0. So that's something to keep in mind if you're playing as a Mancer and all of a sudden you run out of mana, you don't know what to do. Inventory 0 it up, bro. And I think if you read what I guess it's like the README that Pyro included with the download, then you'll know a little bit about how that works. But basically, you can click yourself. So hit T, then click on yourself to do that, and there is a cooldown depending on how many kills that you have. You know, if you're level 1, level 2, or level 3, and level up, then you're going to be slow again, and until you build up you know, a number of kills. So if you have a lot of kills, like 150 kills, you're going to be a lot faster at replenishing your mana than if you had 0 kills. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And or the other way would just be to go to inventory 0 and then click on an enemy unit, and it'll the Mancer will automatically use the mana replenish attack. Now there's mana recharge crystals, which look like little blue triangles that you can pick up, and those are immensely helpful in rebuilding your mana that you've used up. And there's also ammunition, little ammunition things that you can break up into smaller pieces and pick those up, and those will also add to your ammunition that you're able to use. So the Pyromancer has 4 attacks, I believe, as well, or 4 inventory slots. The first one is Stasis, and that's basically kind of like Volt, but it doesn't actually deal any damage. It's a continuous attack that confuses a single unit, and so that they stay in place and they're unable to move, but it uses a ton of mana as well. Stasis, and what is the gosh, I mix them up and I can't see. I can't pull it up here. I wish I could. But then there's also the oh gosh, what is it? Well, that's their the non-special inventory 1 attack. Inventory 2 attack would be Fountain, which is it's kind of like a fireball that flies through the air in kind of an arc, and when it lands, it causes this fire to come out of the ground, and it can anchor a unit to that spot. So that's another thing to keep in mind, and it hits kind of continuously for the duration that it stays up. It's a useful unit for going over other units in front of you, and for also, once again, anchoring enemy units in their place. Inventory 3 would be a Fireball, which is kind of your basic kind of a missile attack there, as we'll see. And inventory 4 is I don't even remember when I think it's Path, and it's just like a fire path that goes, and whatever's in that path will take a ton of fire damage. Now, different specials that the Pyromancer has are it has Immolation, which deals it deals damage to a single unit over time, and any of the units around it deal splash damage. So if it's traveling, then everything around it as it travels will be dealt splash damage, and that's very useful for certain mini bosses, changelings for instance, and also dragons, as we'll see later. It also has the Hellfire attack, where it throws out a line of fire and calls down fireballs from the sky. That basically it's good for cleaning up units that are kind of coming at you in a pretty big area. It's an area of effect spell, and it's very effective also. And what else does the Pyro do? There's a couple other things that the Pyro can... Oh, Firewall. Let's not forget Firewall. Firewall is very useful. Pyromancer will create a wall of flames that shoot up out of the ground, and anything trying to pass through will probably be stunned in place over and over and over, either until they're dead or until the firewall, the end of its duration. Or if they're really fast, sometimes they can kind of get around or through it. But you also have to be careful with the Forest Giant, as he is susceptible to fire damage, getting stuck in something like a firewall. And I think there's another attack that the Pyromancer has, though I'm not sure if I can think of what it is exactly. Oh, Swarm. He also has the Swarm attack, which is inventory 2, I think, where he shoots out many different fireballs in a bunch of different directions, and that's pretty useful for cleaning up, kind of a group of enemy units that have low HP. Okay, so those are the two Mancer units, And I apologize if I'm probably going to make 2 videos out of this, as this is just going to be the tutorial of how to play, and then I'm going to actually watch the game in the second video. So the other tank is the Forest Giant, and he's really useful for taking damage, as opposed to, you know, your vulnerable units that don't have quite as much HP. He's really fast. He can run in there and deal a whole bunch of damage. He can decimate whole waves by himself single-handedly. Just slaps them, takes them out really quickly, especially as he racks up kills. He gets a lot faster than he does to start out with. His mana special is basically he will create roots for the team. He just makes them pop out of the ground. Mandrake roots, as we know, are Myth's way of healing. And so the Paladin can pick those up, as well as the Heron Guards. Heron Guards start with 1 root apiece, but they can pick up the roots, the Mandrake roots that the Forest Giant creates, or they can grab roots that come out of when you destroy things like bushes or trees, or changelings even will sometimes drop you know, a single root if you're lucky. Now there are there's a finite number of roots on the map, so you have to kind of do your best to make do with what you have, and that's kind of that's where the difficulty of Mazzarin's Demise comes in. Now I mentioned that the Forest Giant is susceptible to fire. His other weakness is being paralyzed. So, you know, I don't know if you're familiar with Myth 2 or not, but there are things like whites. When they explode, they cause paralysis, and units that are susceptible to it. For instance, Heron Guards are not susceptible to paralysis for some reason, but everything else pretty much is. And the Forest Giant is, oh man, he's more susceptible than anything else. He will stay frozen for, gosh, a good 20 seconds. I don't know the exact amount of time, but it is it can be very frustrating, especially if, you know, depending on the timing when he gets paralyzed. So things to watch out for would be whites, or even ghost archers, as they can sometimes shoot bows of paralysis at you. And so those are some of the units. There's the Ranger, which is kind of a glorified archer. The Ranger can do everything the archer does, except do it a lot better. Can pick up more bows, and can even pick up a single root to heal with. That's the only unit that can other than a Heron Guard and a Paladin, that can pick up a Mandrake root and can heal itself or heal another unit with that in an emergency. So Ranger's a little bit faster, I think, than archers, shoot a little bit faster, and are just all in all a little bit better than the regular archers. Archers are furbolg, I should call them. Shoot really far compared to regular Myth 2. In fact, all of these units are a lot better here in Mazzarin's Demise than you'll find them to be in the campaigns for Myth and Myth 2. So, you know, your berserkers, I guess I should call them, are kind of your grunt melee force here. Their mana attack is basically massive blow. It deals a ton of damage, but they also become less effective after until they have full mana. They're at their best when they have full mana, but their massive blow attack deals a ton of damage and is really good in the emergency situations. So if they're being hounded by a Tro or you know, a giant unit, you know, it can work to your advantage to use that, and they regain their mana by attacking, by basically killing other units. Now this is the only unit on your team that can actually pick up crystals, pick up items that drop on the map. And items will usually fall outside of, well, that's not true, because, you know, Mandrake roots can be picked up by Heron Guards and the Paladin. And of course, you know, crystals can be picked up by, you know, these different special units. But they're the only ones that can pick up everything. They can pick up everything bring it back to somebody, drop it, and then they can pick it up. So they're really good at running out there and picking things up that your vulnerable units might not want to actually go out and risk themselves to do. So keep that in mind as well. Berserkers tend to do that, tend to be utilized for that, even as they level, and they can go up to level 2 as well. Well, level 3, but only one Berserker can go up to level 3, as we'll see later on, probably. And then the Heron Guards are the other standard melee unit. They're basically healers. And when they level up, their mana is used, well, they have a mana heal, so I guess they start off with 2 heals. But when they level up, they get a lot better. And also their mana, they can, I think a heal only costs maybe like 30% mana, so they can have maybe like 3 heals from full mana, and I think they regenerate mana a lot faster as they level up, so they get a lot better. They're really good to level up. Now I've talked about pretty much everything. Oh yes, and then of course the bows can pick up. You'll see like golden bows lying around. The ranger and the furbolg can pick those up and stack those bows. They can use different bows at different times for different things, and there's like a whole multiplicity of different bows available, as we'll see later on. There's a whole multiplicity of paladin crystals, Mazzarin crystals, different bows, and all kinds of things that we'll see in the game. It's kind of a lottery. It's really fun, really interesting, as no two games are quite the same, or quite alike. There's actually a surprising amount of replayability for Mazzarin's Demise, as we'll see. It's really quite interesting to see each game dynamic as it happens, kind of manifest. All right, so the only units that I haven't talked about really yet are the dwarves, and a lot of people have said that there are just so many dwarves in the game, and they're kind of hard to use, and most people, I think, will tend to suicide off the bat the dwarven striders. There is a script so that if you walk them over here and then taunt, they will just automatically die, and you don't have to worry about them. Dwarven striders, the reason why people suicide them is they're not, if you have too many dwarves on your team, then they're going to be taking a lot of kills that you could be getting from other units, and dwarven striders have low HP, so they tend to die a lot more easily than almost anything else. They are really fast though, and they start out with 4 time bombs. They'll place a bomb on the ground, and they can run away, and then it'll explode after a few seconds and do a ton of damage to whatever's standing around. But when they die, they drop all their time bombs, and that can get set off, so it's not all that fun sometimes. So I think normally players will tend to suicide the striders. The Pathfinder, on the other hand, does a ton of damage. It's not as fast as the Dwarven Strider, not as strong as the Dwarven Demolitionist, HP wise, but is kind of a good medium dwarf unit. It kind of has the best of both worlds there. Is just kind of your standard dwarf, and has 15, starts out with 15, they're basically flares. You throw them, and some gas, you throw like a bottle, some gas comes out, and then an airstrike is called, and a bunch of satchels are rained down from the sky, doing a ton of AoE damage. So he's actually pretty good, because later on his attack, as he levels up, gets better and better and better, and he can throw farther and farther and farther. So he's not a bad dwarf at all. The mortar dwarf is also really good. A lot of people will use him late into the game as well. He can survive, if he can survive. So the mortar dwarf shoots a mortar, not too different from the standard myth game, except as he vets, he gets faster and faster and faster, and he can level up to maximum level 3, and he shoots. He can just basically I call it fire hosing when they're shooting just inhumanly fast. And he gets 12, they're called, I forget what they're called, I guess splashes. That's what everyone else calls them. But you know, it's kind of like an RPG from World War II, if you've ever played the Myth plugin World War II. But basically what you do is you press T and then you click about halfway and then he shoots, you know, and it does an area effect damage. We'll see it in action. Then of course the Demolitionist. Demolitionists, very interesting. They don't shoot they don't throw their Molotov cocktails as direct as some of these other units. They throw them kind of, they arc them up and over, whereas, you know, the Pathfinder will throw it kind of more directly at the unit. And they also have a satchel, kind of a satchel rain, where they throw a bunch of satchels at a group of units, and then, you know, throw a bottle and explode that. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. They also start with inventory 2, or inventory 1, I guess, which is hammer and anvil, and we'll see that in action. That is, if you're interested in how that works, you'll just have to read the README file for Pyro's RC10A. All right, fine, I'll tell you. Hammer and anvil, and also too, Pyro introduced a bunch of red crystals that these dwarves can pick up, and basically if the Demolitionists pick them up, it's hammer and anvil. If the Striders pick them up, it's globes, which are basically just, you know, interesting effective attacks that these dwarves can do. Hammer and anvil does area of effect damage. Basically they throw the hammer, and then the anvil is like this thing that propels it even further. So it's a really interesting physics-based attack that does area of effect damage, and can be very, very effective. Globes is another physics-based attack where they throw these things that, you know, go out in different directions and explode, and, you know, it's kind of randomized in that sense. All right, so that's going to do it for this video. I don't want to start off by doing like this 15-minute long kind of tutorial of what all the units do and all that, but you know, for the actual gameplay. So this is going to be a separate video, and hopefully you guys stay with me for the next video. I hope it's going to be a lot of fun, and that's going to be the actual gameplay. So thanks for sticking with me. It's NewMutator bringing you how to play Mazzarin's Demise 6, and yeah, we'll see that in the next video. Thanks again, and we'll see you then.